Hi, I'm Luna, and this is Luna Report. A woman in old clothes walked onto the most guarded street in Brooklyn's graffiti scene. No crew, no fame, just a gray hoodie and a quiet mission. They mocked her, tried to erase her, laughed like she didn't belong, but they didn't realize she wasn't lost, she was watching, and what came next. No one saw it coming. Who is she? And why are the streets whispering her name? Stay tuned. The story unfolds only on Luna Report. Back to the studio.
Thank you, Luna. Back to the studio, and we begin. Under the dim hum of streetlights, the warehouse wall pulsed with decades of tags, layered signatures, gang symbols, burner pieces melted into each other like urban sediment. This was Block's territory, Brooklyn's self-declared graffiti royalty, sons of CEOs and hedge fund babies with designer spray cans and YouTube followings. They weren't from the streets, but they played the part. Supreme hoodies, fake snarls, rented grime. They called themselves artists, but their fame was built on money and mockery, crushing lesser-known crews, buying out mural space, mocking anyone who didn't fit their code of clout. Tonight, they were mid-session, a rooftop photo shoot, loud swaggering, half-drunk on overpriced IPAs. Their newest piece, a flaming lion with gold-plated fangs, was barely dry when they saw her. She was across the street, small, silent, gray hoodie pulled low, paint can in hand, no entourage, no camera. She crossed the cracked pavement with calm steps and approached a far corner of their sacred wall. Blocks noticed. "What is this trash?" one of them spat, his Rolex catching the streetlight. "Ain't your mom's basement, Grandma," another jeered, already filming. A third stepped forward, shaking a Montanta gold can. "This is real art, not some knitting circle. Go crochet a sweater." Their laughter barked, cruel and cutting. The girl didn't look at them. She just crouched down and painted a single small tag, 3 graceful strokes, a symbol too elegant to be local. Blocks descended on her like vultures. They didn't wait for her to finish. Black spray hissed over her work in seconds, drowning it in synthetic darkness. Their lion grinned above it all, victorious. She stood quietly, looked at the black smear, then at them, and walked away. No words, just silence, the kind that unnerves. One of the younger Blocks boys laughed too hard, clearly shaken. "Yo, what was that? Old lady art therapy?" "Probably some washed tagger trying to relive her 90s fame," someone muttered. They went back to posing under their lion. More cans clacked, more laughter. But even then, something felt off. By dawn, the streets buzzed. Kids with cracked phones stood on sidewalks pointing. Commuters missed their stops. The bodega guy across from the wall refused to speak. He just kept staring upward, muttering "damn" under his breath. Above Blocks' main piece, 4 stories up, impossible to reach without a rig, a new graffiti loomed. A girl's face in a painted surgical mask, eyes sharp, mournful, rendered in photorealistic detail. Her gaze held weight, not fame, not clout, power, real power. Above her head, in quiet block letters, "Real art doesn't scream, it kills quietly." Silence gripped the street. Someone zoomed in. There it was, a small, near-invisible signature on the collarbone. Nora. The name hit like a Molotov. Blocks' reputation wasn't just threatened, it was bleeding out. And across Brooklyn, one question echoed like a warning. What if she's still around? They laughed at first, called it a fluke. A prank with a projector. Probably a drone artist from Jersey, Malik sneered, trying to shrug it off in front of his 30,000 followers on Instagram Live. But beneath the posturing, Blokes was unraveling. By mid-morning, every art blog from Bushwick to Berlin was reposting the photo, Nora's rooftop portrait, that haunting, masked face with eyes that stared through you like a secret you didn't want to admit. "This technique's impossible," one user commented. "Brushless, no drips, like she painted it with breath." The Blocks lion? Forgotten. Zoomed out, it looked like a child's tantrum underneath her calm masterpiece. Then came the knock on Malik's brownstone. Not cops. Worse, a man in a Navy coat holding a card from the Louvre's outreach branch. They wanted to know if Nora was available for a residency. Malik blinked at the man like he'd been slapped. "No," he muttered. "She's not one of us." The man smiled politely. "That's why she matters." By nightfall, another Nora piece bloomed, this time on the abandoned water tower above Gowanus. A pair of ballet shoes untied mid-fall, the caption in white mist, "Real skill doesn't need permission." It wasn't just art. It was war, and Blocks was losing. They tried to strike back, flooded rooftops with drones, rented scaffolding to secure their buildings. But the next day, even their private training yard, an old subway car parked behind a locked fence, had been hit. Inside, painted over their internal crew slogans, "Fame fades, skill scars." Signed, Nora. Panic spread through their ranks. Some swore they'd heard her at night, the hiss of paint and soft footsteps on gravel. One boy claimed he saw a shadow on the rooftop wearing a gray hoodie just before all the lights cut out. Malik screamed at him, "She's a myth, a fucking marketing stunt." But no one believed that anymore. At 3 a.m., Malik snuck back to the wall they'd first mocked her at. He meant to repaint the line bigger, bolder, something to reassert control. But when he arrived, the wall was empty. No lion. No Nora. Just 3 words etched into the brick itself, burned with acid. "You started this." Malik stepped back, shaken for the first time in years. Because deep down he knew they didn't just paint over a tag that night. They declared war on a ghost who knew how to vanish and how to haunt. By the 3rd night, Blocks was barely holding the mask. What used to be swagger was now paranoia. Malik barked orders no one followed. Eli, their logistics guy, started skipping nights, claiming his cousin got jumped. By who? Malik had snapped. Eli just shook his head. Wasn't a who, was a feeling. The streets had changed. People used to move out of Blocks' way. Now they crossed sidewalks to stare at the rooftops, hoping to catch a glimpse. Not of Blocks, of her. Nora? Graffiti crews from Queens, Harlem, even Newark stopped tagging in Brooklyn. It's her zone now, one said on TikTok. That's sacred turf. Blocks tried to push back, re-tagged over her water tower piece. But the next morning, it wasn't just repainted, it was reworked. The entire tower had been turned into a 360-degree mural. A girl curled in sleep, the skyline spinning around her like constellations. Beneath it,
"You cover my silence with noise. I cover your noise with truth."
Nora. Eli quit the next day. "You can't beat a ghost," he told Malik. "You mocked her, and now you don't get to be forgotten. You get to be erased." Malik snapped. "You think she's a god?" "No," Eli said, already walking away. "She's the consequence." At a gallery in Dumbo, a new exhibit opened, unannounced, invitation only. No title, just one wall-length image. A school hallway, fluorescent light bleeding down locker rows, and in the center, a girl crouched, painting. The only color in the image, red paint dripping from her fingers. Her face half visible, eyes distant, hoodie down. The signature in the corner, Nora. A local journalist found an old article from 2011. A 15-year-old street artist named Leonora Hart, arrested for painting a school wall with a mural of drowning girls in blazers. The charges vanished. The artist did too. Could it be her? The article asked. And if so, where has she been all this time? Meanwhile, Blocks made one final play. They invited a rival crew, DYSKL, to a paint-off, a public war to prove they were still kings. It was a setup. At the last second, DYSKL backed out, scared off by whispers. Malik stood in front of the press alone, face tight, smile faker than his street rep. Then it happened. Right behind him, projected onto the wall of a bank building, not painted, but massive blinding light, a face in a gray hoodie. Eyes calm, jaw tight. Over it, a message. Art isn't a crown you steal, it's a wound you earn. Nora. The crowd didn't boo. They didn't cheer. They just turned and walked away, leaving Blocks behind. Not feared, not respected, just irrelevant. Long before Blocks, before the rooftop wars and silent taglines, there was a girl named Leonora Hart. 15, wiry, bruised at the edges. She painted to survive, not for fame, not for followers, but because silence in her neighborhood was louder than screams. Her first mural was done with house paint stolen from a condemned building. It was of her older sister, mouth stitched shut, standing in front of their high school with her fists up. 2 days later, someone covered it in gang tags. 3 days after that, the tags were burned off with acid. Everyone blamed a rival crew, but Nora knew it wasn't them. It was the administration. The principal called her into the office. "You're not expressing art," he said. "You're broadcasting trauma. We don't do that here." He expelled her the same day. That night, a mural appeared across from his brownstone. A man with a megaphone for a mouth and nothing inside. Nora vanished the morning after. Back in Brooklyn, the city's pulse now beat in her rhythm. Streetwear brands were offering $50,000 to identify her. Art schools issued statements condemning vigilante painters, while secretly emailing her tagged walls asking for collaborative exhibitions. No one heard back. But pieces of her past kept surfacing. A kid in Bed-Stuy found a school book in an abandoned lot. Inside, sketches, pages and pages, girls with broken wings, boys made of glass, a boy holding a spray can like a dagger. In the margin, a quote in faded pencil. They called it vandalism. I called it survival. Nora, age 16. Online forums went into overdrive. Was she alive all this time? Where did she go? How did she learn to paint like that? One answer kept surfacing. She never stopped. You just stopped looking. Meanwhile, Blocks was silent. Malik deleted his socials, their merch store closed. A Blocks Forever mural in Bushwick was quietly painted over, not by Nora, by their own hands. At a dive bar in Red Hook, two ex-members whispered over warm beer. She's not doing this for clout, one said. The other nodded. She's doing it for something we took. A girl nearby looked up from her drink, her gray hoodie pulled low. She didn't speak, she didn't move. But when they left, the bar's brick wall bore a new tag. Silence remembers everything. Nora. The mural on the community center didn't last a day. Nora painted it just before dawn. A girl kneeling, arms around a child, both of them faceless. Behind them, a city crumbling into shards. Above them, scrawled in bone white, "Who paints the ones you bury?" By noon, city workers were dispatched, not to protect it, to remove it. They cited unauthorized messaging, claimed the building had been targeted by vandals. But the community knew the mural hadn't defaced anything. It had told the truth. Mrs. Alvarez, who ran the after-school program, stood in front of the scrubbers. She painted what we live, she said. You just didn't like seeing it. They pushed past her anyway, but by sunset, a new mural appeared, this time 3 stories up, out of reach. A silhouette of a girl with a roller in hand painting over a mirror. In the mirror, the mayor, with his face melting. Beneath it, don't clean the wall, clean the wound.
Nora.
Meanwhile, whispers twisted into questions. Why now? Why Brooklyn? And why target Blocks? A podcast episode went viral. An old art teacher from the Bronx recalling a student with calloused hands and rage in her brush. She didn't give her name, just called her the girl who painted like she was grieving. She never said why she painted, the teacher said, but you could tell she was erasing something they did to her, something they didn't want anyone to remember. Malik knew exactly what. Back in their early days, before Blocks had sponsors, they weren't a crew, just kids tagging subway tunnels for kicks. One night, they stumbled on an old tunnel where someone had painted something massive. A mural in total silence, 100 feet wide. A face, one girl, masked, but the eyes bled memory. They didn't just deface it. They filmed themselves destroying it, spray painting over her signature, tagging Blocks over her heart. They uploaded the video. It went viral. The comments were brutal. Did you just destroy an actual masterpiece? Cowards. Who was the original artist? They deleted the video, but it was too late. The girl, she vanished. And Malik, he laughed it off. Street clout, baby, he'd said. But now her name was spoken in reverence. And Blocks, it was spoken like a mistake. The next piece didn't show up on a wall. It appeared on the side of a school bus, abandoned, rusted, forgotten in a scrap lot near East Flatbush. No one knew how she got in. No one saw her leave. But there it was, gleaming under layers of old rust and time. A row of desks, empty, torn textbooks scattered on the floor. And on the chalkboard, for every girl you called too loud, too angry, too much, I was listening, Nora. An art blogger called it a museum of pain, placed where no one thought to look. A teacher recognized the desks. They were identical to the ones used in Monroe Heights, a school shut down 10 years ago after a fire destroyed a wing that housed a student mural program. Whispers swelled. Nora hadn't just painted the city. She'd painted history, hers and everyone they tried to forget. Back in Williamsburg, Blocks' warehouse studio sat locked and dark. The windows had been blacked out with trash bags. Inside, Malik paced like a man unraveling. She's not doing this for art, he muttered. She's making a message out of us. No one answered. The few members who hadn't fled were ghosts themselves, staring at their shoes, their hands, their silence. A girl named Lexi, once Blocks' fastest climber, pulled out a folder from under her hoodie. She'd printed screenshots of the old tunnel video, the one they'd erased. She was already a legend back then, she said. We didn't tag over some random kid's piece. We killed a voice. Malik snatched the folder, flipped through, then stopped cold. One frame. One image. A grainy shot of the mural before they ruined it. The face in the painting? It was Nora. Younger, maskless, but unmistakable. The same eyes. They hadn't silenced her. They built her. That night, the street near Blox's old warehouse filled with people. Not an organized protest, a vigil almost. Strangers with cameras, sketchbooks, kids holding spray cans like relics. No one spoke loud. No one tagged anything. They were just waiting. And at exactly 2 p.m., it happened. The warehouse's blacked out windows lit up. From inside, projected against the glass, a video. Footage from that old tunnel. The full video. The destruction, the laughter. Malik's face in focus, grinning as he slashed Nora's original mural with silver paint. And then, silence. Just text across the screen. This is what you made. And now, I'm what you can't unmake. A single signature followed. Nora. Malik's hands wouldn't stop shaking. It wasn't just the footage, it was the silence that followed. No hashtags, no viral takedowns. Just the city's collective gaze turned inward. Every art crew, every gallery, every student who once looked up to Blox now looked down in disgust. The street outside their warehouse was renamed online the Graveyard of Cred. Inside, Lexi stared at a cracked mirror taped above the old sketch wall. A week ago, that wall was full. Blox outlines, test patterns, marker plans for future burners. Now, only one thing remained. Nora's original symbol. Scanned from a still of the tunnel video. Printed. Pinned. The girl no one saw coming had become the only one they saw. Meanwhile, in a quiet alley behind the Brooklyn Museum, another mural appeared. No paint this time. A relief carved directly into brick. Subtle. Ghost-like. A girl holding a tape recorder. Dozens of mouths around her. Shouting, taunting, laughing. But her face? Calm. As if their noise was just wind. Above her head, the loudest lies are told in whispers. And I heard every one. Nora. Local artists began leaving candles beside the wall. Not for her. For what they saw in her. Every dismissal, every silence. Every time someone rolled their eyes and said, "You're too emotional." In Manhattan's art circles, panic bloomed. A gallery director confessed on a live podcast that they'd once bought out Nora's wall in the Bronx for a commercial project, paid Blox to cover it and stage a new piece over it. It was business, she said. But the interviewer cut her off. You bought her silence, and now she's bought your legacy. And then the message changed. That night, a series of stenciled images appeared across subway tunnels, park benches, rooftops. Different faces. Young girls, older women, black, brown, pale, tired, fierce, all masked, all gazing forward, each one tagged. Nora is many. It wasn't just her anymore. She'd become a movement, a symbol for the erased, the mocked, the ones who'd been painted over too many times to remember their original shade. The audio file appeared on a public drive linked in a quiet graffiti forum, no fanfare, no viral marketing, just one word as the title, confession. The file was less than 3 minutes. Nora's voice unfiltered, unhurried, like someone who had waited a decade to speak and no longer cared if anyone believed her. You remember the tunnel, she said, but you don't remember me. Pause. You filmed yourselves laughing, scraping off a piece of me like I was nothing. I watched it online, not angry, just hollow, because I realized that night what I always suspected. In your eyes, my art was disposable, just like I was. Her voice didn't shake, it didn't rise, it sat heavy, like fresh paint still wet on the truth. You didn't just take a wall, you took my home, my reputation, my future, and then you made careers off the ashes. Silence. Then the last line. I'm not back for revenge, I'm back to remind you. Some silence is loaded, and some names stay. Click, end. Within an hour, the file had 300,000 downloads. The next day, every remaining Blox mural in Brooklyn was gone. Not painted over. Absorbed. Nora didn't destroy them. She incorporated them, distorted their shapes, twisted their letters into new forms. On one building, Blox's old crown logo was transformed into a girl's open eye, weeping color. On another, their lion was inverted, now caged, ribs visible, eyes hollow. It was surgical, intentional, public, like she was rewriting history. In a warehouse in Gowanus, Malik sat alone. The others had scattered, some rebranded, others vanished. The brand deals were dead. No one bought Blox merch anymore. It didn't matter how good their line work was, how bold their throwies had once looked. Because in every comment thread, one word kept appearing. Nora? She was no longer just an artist. She was a ledger, a verdict, a reminder that even in a city of noise, one whisper painted with truth can drown everything. And as the sun set that evening, another mural bloomed, this time on the side of a courthouse. A girl's face turned sideways, her mouth stitched shut with thread made of spray lines, and beneath it,
This is what it costs to be quiet too long.
Nora. The courthouse mural made the national news, not because of its size, though it was 5 stories tall, not even because of its beauty, though it stopped people in their tracks. It was the placement that struck a nerve. Right above the words equal justice under law, the city tried to paint over it. That night, it reappeared, exactly the same. No camera footage, no ladder marks, just there. The mayor issued a statement calling it an act of defiance against city order. The next morning, Nora responded. This time not with paint, with paperwork. A scanned image of a 2012 cease and desist letter signed by the very same mayor back when he was councilman. The letter targeted a 17-year-old unknown female graffiti suspect threatening legal action if she ever returned to Monroe Heights with unauthorized artwork. Nora. She had kept it for 12 years, and now the city saw it for what it was, a warning to a girl for painting grief too publicly. The comment threads lit up. So she was silenced by the same man calling her a criminal? This isn't vandalism, it's testimony. That week, murals began appearing not just in Brooklyn, but in Chicago, Detroit, Oakland, Paris, all unsigned, but all bearing the same style: ghost faces, masked girls, aching hands, all ending with the same scrawled phrase, "She's not alone anymore." Art schools that once ignored her started hosting public panels on ethical space and graffiti. Crews disbanded, others rebranded under names like Voice and Quiet Fire. The city tried to claim her legacy, tried to buy it, archive it, control it. But Nora had already written her own ending. At a quiet lot in East Brooklyn, once a dumping ground for failed murals, a new gallery opened, not sponsored, not branded, just a long stretch of raw brick. At the top, a plaque for the ones who painted anyway. People came in silence. They brought candles, old sketches, journals, forgotten dreams. They painted. No signatures, no followers, no clout. Just truth. Inside the main wall, untouched, lit only by a single hanging bulb, a final Nora piece. No mask, no shadow, just a girl alone painting a mirror. In the reflection, all of us. Beneath it, in the smallest font she ever used, "You didn't see me, but now you see yourselves." Nora. The girl in the mural didn't look angry. She looked finished. Not erased, not vindicated. Whole. People stood before it in silence. Artists, teachers, teenagers, mothers who'd once been told they were too much. They didn't take selfies. They didn't tag their locations. They just stared. Because it wasn't a wall anymore. It was a confession booth, a mirror, a wound, sealed not with apology, but with truth. Malik came at night. No cameras, no mask. He stood in front of her final mural, the one with the mirror, and took something from his bag. A silver can, the same brand he'd used that night in the tunnel. He held it up, then dropped it. It clanged once on the concrete. Then he knelt. No audience, no hashtags, no redemption arc. Just a man brought low by the weight of a truth he once destroyed. Behind him, someone watched. Not from the shadows. From the rooftop. A woman in a gray hoodie, still calm. She didn't interrupt, didn't film, just watched, and then disappeared. In the months that followed, the city tried to name a street after her. Nora Way. But the petition returned unsigned. Instead, a message appeared beneath the plaque. "Don't name me. Remember her." It wasn't about Nora anymore. Not just. It never was. She had painted for the girl she'd been, the one no one protected. For the voices that were laughed out of rooms, out of schools, off of walls. She painted so that silence wouldn't mean surrender. And now, every kid who picks up a can and looks at a wall with something true to say checks the corner first, just to be sure. To see if she's already been there. Because sometimes they find it. A small, faded mark, 3 strokes, barely visible. But if the light hits just right, it reads, Nora, still painting, still listening, still watching.